I'm Regina, 32 years old, and 3 weeks ago, at my family's Thanksgiving dinner, I walked through the front door carrying my grandmother's pecan pie and discovered my chair had been removed from the table. 23 relatives sat there. No one said a word. My mother looked at me and said, "There's no room for disappointments." I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I simply placed an envelope on my father's plate and said, "Happy Thanksgiving. I finally understand why you hate me." The DNA results inside answered questions I'd been asking my whole life, but they also raised one bigger question, one that nobody in that room could answer. Before I continue, if this story resonates with you, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely connect with it. And if you're watching right now, drop a comment telling me where you're from and what time it is there. Now, let me take you back 6 months earlier to the day my grandmother passed away. The funeral home smelled like lilies and floor polish. I arrived an hour early, the way Grandma Ruth always taught me. Early is on time is late. I wanted to help arrange the flowers, greet the guests, do something useful. My mother was already there, directing the funeral staff like a general commanding troops. "Regina." She didn't look up from her clipboard. "You can stand by the entrance. Greet people as they arrive." I thought I'd sit with the family. The front row is for immediate family, people who were close to your grandmother. I felt the words land like a slap. I'd spent every Sunday afternoon with Grandma Ruth for the past 5 years. I was the one who drove her to doctor's appointments. I was the one who held her hand when the hospice nurse explained what comfort care meant. "Mom, I was close to her." She finally looked at me. That familiar expression, not anger, not disappointment, just nothing, like looking at a stranger on a bus. "Clarissa is flying in from Boston. She needs the space. You understand." I understood. I always understood. The service was beautiful. My sister Clarissa cried elegantly in the front row, dabbing her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief while our mother held her. I stood in the back, near the guest book, watching my family grieve together without me. Afterward, people filed past to offer condolences. I shook hands, accepted hugs from distant relatives who couldn't quite remember my name. Then the lawyer approached me. Gray suit, kind eyes, firm handshake. "Miss Seaton, I'm David Morris, your grandmother's attorney. She left something specifically for you." He paused. "But I'll need time to verify some details first. I'll be in touch." I watched him walk away, questions multiplying in my mind. What had Grandma Ruth left me? And why did it need verification? To understand that moment, you need to know what the previous 10 years looked like. I was 22, junior year at State, double majoring in English and business. Dean's List. Plans to go to law school, a future. Then my mother got diagnosed with stage 1 breast cancer. The family meeting was brief. Dad sat at the head of the table, Mom beside him, looking fragile for the first time in my life. Clarissa was 20, pre-med, already accepted into an accelerated program. "Someone needs to stay home and help your mother through treatment," Dad said. "Clarissa can't interrupt her studies. Medical school doesn't wait." Everyone looked at me. "I'll do it," I said. "Because that's what I did." I said yes. 2 years of chemotherapy appointments, radiation schedules, cooking meals Mom couldn't taste, cleaning bathrooms after she got sick, holding her hair back, until there was no hair left to hold. She recovered. Fully. The doctors called it a success story. When I asked about going back to finish my degree, Dad shook his head. "You're 24 now. What's the point? Get a job, help with bills." Clarissa graduated medical school 4 years later. The party had 60 guests, a catered dinner, a champagne toast. I washed dishes until midnight. I found the family photo albums once, looking for a picture of Grandma Ruth for her birthday card. Clarissa had an entire book dedicated to her achievements. Dance recitals, soccer trophies, graduation ceremonies. I counted 3 photos of myself. Baby picture, kindergarten, one blurry shot at Christmas where I was half cut off by the frame. I asked Grandma Ruth about it once. She held my hand and said something I didn't understand at the time. "Your mother has a secret, sweetheart, and until she faces it, she'll keep punishing you instead of herself." I should have asked what she meant. I didn't. Some questions you're not ready to hear the answers to. 3 weeks before Thanksgiving, my phone rang at 7 a.m. "Miss Seaton, David Morris, your grandmother's attorney. I sat up in bed, heart suddenly racing. Yes? I apologize it's taken so long. Your grandmother's instructions were very specific. The envelope couldn't be released until 6 months after her passing. She wanted to give you time to grieve before facing what's inside. He paused. The waiting period ended yesterday. I have everything ready for you. 6 months. Grandma Ruth had planned even that. Separate from the estate? The will had been read 2 months ago. Mom got the house, Clarissa got the jewelry and a trust fund. I got a set of vintage teacups and a handwritten recipe book. This was held in a private safety deposit box. She gave explicit instructions, only to be opened after her passing and only to be delivered to you personally. I met him at his office that afternoon. The envelope was thick, sealed with red wax. My grandmother's handwriting across the front. For Regina, when you're ready to know the truth. She also left a message, Mr. Morris said. He read from a small card. Read it when you're ready to face what I couldn't tell you in life. I'm sorry it took me so long. I love you, Ruthie. My hands trembled as I took the envelope. It felt heavy, not just paper heavy, but weighted with something else. Secrets. Answers. Things I wasn't sure I wanted to know. Did she say what's inside? I asked. No, only that you deserved the truth. I drove home with the envelope on my passenger seat like a bomb that might detonate. When I got to my apartment, I put it in my nightstand drawer. I wasn't ready. But Thanksgiving was coming, and somehow I knew that everything was about to change. I just didn't know how much. 5 days before Thanksgiving, my mother called. This was unusual. We didn't talk on the phone. Texts, sometimes. Brief, functional. Family dinner at 6. Bring a side dish. Never actual conversation. Regina. Her voice was clipped, efficient. Thanksgiving this year is at our house. The whole family. Both sides. Okay, I'll make Grandma Ruth's pecan pie. Clarissa has an announcement. Something wonderful. A pause waited with meaning. Everyone's coming. Aunts, uncles, cousins, 20-something people. This is important. I knew what she wasn't saying. Don't embarrass us. Don't be yourself. I'll be there. Good. Arrive an hour early. Someone needs to help set up the table. She hung up without saying goodbye. I sat with my phone in my hand, staring at nothing. Then I looked at my nightstand drawer. The envelope was still there, unopened. What was I so afraid of? I pulled it out, turned it over in my hands. The red wax seal. Grandma Ruth's familiar handwriting. When you're ready to know the truth. Was I ready? The next day, I found out what Clarissa's wonderful announcement was. She posted it on Instagram. A photo of herself cradling her very pregnant belly, a string of heart emojis, and the caption, Baby Ruth Seton Wells arriving any day now. 3rd trimester glow is real. My perfect sister was having a perfect baby with her perfect lawyer husband. The family would celebrate. Champagne would flow. My mother would cry happy tears. And I would be there, invisible, passing the mashed potatoes. Something shifted in me then. A crack in the wall I'd built to survive. Maybe it was time to stop being invisible. That night, I opened the envelope. My hands shook as I broke the wax seal. Inside, a handwritten letter, 3 pages long. A folded document with a medical laboratory letterhead. A photocopy of what looked like a birth certificate, portions blacked out with marker. I read Grandma Ruth's letter first. My darling Regina, I'm sorry. I've carried this secret for 32 years, and I should have told you sooner. I was afraid of what it would do to our family, afraid of losing your mother, afraid of hurting you. But you deserve the truth. You are not Harold's biological daughter. I had my suspicions for years. The way your mother looked at you, not with love, but with something else. Guilt, maybe. Fear. Harold looked at you like a stranger he couldn't quite place. I told myself I was imagining things. 2 years ago I stopped imagining. I took samples, your hairbrush from my bathroom, Harold's water glass. I sent them to a private lab. The results are enclosed. 0% probability that Harold Seton is your biological father. I confronted your mother. She begged me not to tell anyone. She cried and said if Harold found out, he'd leave her. She made me promise to stay silent. I kept that promise while I lived, but I won't let you spend the rest of your life not knowing who you are. Your mother refuses to reveal your biological father's identity. I tried to find out. I couldn't. That secret she guards with her life. I'm sorry I wasn't braver. I'm sorry I let her punish you for her own mistake. You didn't deserve any of it. I love you more than you know. Grandma Ruth. I read the DNA report 3 times. The numbers blurred through my tears. 0% match, 32 years of being treated like an outsider. Now I knew why. But who was my real father? I didn't sleep that night. I sat on my apartment floor, papers spread around me like evidence at a crime scene. The DNA report, the letter, the birth certificate with its blacked-out sections. Someone had deliberately obscured the father's name. My whole life rearranged itself in my mind. The way my mother flinched when I tried to hug her. The way my father looked through me like I was a window he'd rather keep closed. The way Clarissa got everything. The tuition, the parties, the praise, while I got the leftovers. It wasn't random. It wasn't because I'd failed somehow. It was because every time they looked at me, they saw the evidence of a lie. I had 2 choices. Keep quiet, fold the papers back into the envelope, show up at Thanksgiving, set the table, pass the gravy, be invisible, stay the family disappointment, never know who I really am, or speak, risk everything, lose the family I'd spent 32 years trying to earn. But finally stop apologizing for existing. I thought about what Grandma Ruth wrote. You didn't deserve any of it. 32 years I'd believed I was broken. That if I just tried harder, loved more, gave more, sacrificed more, someday my parents would love me back. The DNA report said what I'd always felt but couldn't prove. I was never going to win. The game was rigged from the start. I photocopied the documents, put the originals in my safe, slid the copies into a fresh envelope. I wasn't going to Thanksgiving for revenge. I was going for answers. And if they pushed me, if they proved one more time that I had no place at their table, then I would give them the truth they'd been hiding from for 32 years. The truth doesn't need permission, it just needs someone brave enough to speak it. Thanksgiving morning, cold and bright, the kind of November day that looks pretty, but bites. I parked behind my sister's white Mercedes in our parents' driveway. The house looked like a magazine cover, wreaths on the door, pumpkins on the porch, a gather-together banner in the window. The envelope sat in my coat pocket. I'd promised myself I wouldn't use it unless they forced my hand. Be calm, be patient. Give them one more chance. Mom opened the door before I could knock. You're late. I'm 10 minutes early. I said an hour early. Clarissa's already inside. We're behind schedule. She turned and walked away, leaving me to close the door myself. The house smelled like roasting turkey and cinnamon candles. 24 place settings circled the extended dining table, white china, crystal glasses, handwritten name cards at each seat. I looked for mine. I walked around the table twice. Mom, where's my seat? She was arranging flowers in the centerpiece, not looking at me. We ran out of room. You'll eat in the kitchen after. After? After the main meal, when the family's done. I felt my heart rate spike. Stay calm. There are 24 seats. I count 23 names. My sister appeared in the doorway, one hand resting on her very pregnant belly. 8 months along, and she still moved like she owned every room. The last seat is for baby Seton Wells. We made a little card for the announcement. She smiled. Cute, right? I looked at the place card. Tiny letters. Baby Seton Wells, coming soon. My seat, my place at the family table, had been given to an unborn child. You replaced me with someone who doesn't exist yet. Clarissa's smile flickered. Don't be dramatic, it's just symbolic. The envelope felt heavier in my pocket. One more chance, I told myself. Give them one more chance. I followed my mother into the kitchen, alone. The door swung shut behind us. Mom, I need to talk to you. She was basting the turkey, back turned. Not now, Regina. 32 years I've done everything you asked. I dropped out of school to take care of you, and you can't give me a chair? You dropped out because you couldn't hack it. Don't rewrite history. You asked me to stay. Dad said Clarissa couldn't be interrupted. Clarissa had a future. She finally turned. Her eyes were flat, cold. You had a job. Helping this family, that's what you were good for. The words hit like ice water. Good for? You want the truth? Fine. You've always been different, difficult. I tried, Regina. God knows I tried to love you the way I love your sister. But there's something missing in you, something broken. I felt the envelope against my chest, the truth burning a hole in my coat. Something missing in me, I repeated. Or something you're not telling me? Her face changed. Just for a second, a flash of fear before the mask came back. I don't know what you're talking about. I think you do. The kitchen door swung open. My father stood there, whiskey glass in hand. Everything all right? Mom's voice went syrup-sweet. Fine, honey. Regina was just leaving to help greet guests. I looked at my father, the man who'd never hugged me, never said he was proud of me, never looked at me the way he looked at Clarissa. Sure, I said. I'll go stand by the door, like the help. I walked past him, stopped, turned back. Happy Thanksgiving, Dad. He didn't respond. He never did. I found my father in his study 20 minutes later. He sat in his leather chair by the window, staring at the backyard where I used to play alone while Clarissa had friends over. His whiskey was untouched. Dad! He didn't turn. What is it, Regina? I don't have a seat at the table. Your mother handles the arrangements. And you're okay with that? Your own daughter eating in the kitchen like a servant? Silence. He swirled his drink. Ice clinked against glass. You're not… He stopped himself. I'm not what? He finally looked at me. And in his eyes, I saw something I'd never noticed before. Not hatred, not disappointment, just emptiness. Like looking at a wall where a picture used to hang. You're your mother's daughter, he said. She decides. I'm your daughter too. The silence stretched so long I could hear the clock ticking on his desk. You're your mother's daughter, he repeated. The emphasis was different this time. A weight I was only beginning to understand. Dad, if there's something I should know… Drop it, Regina. He turned back to the window. Today is about Clarissa. About the baby. Don't cause problems. I've never caused problems. That's the one thing I've never done. Then don't start now. I left his study with a new certainty crystallizing in my gut. My father knew something. Maybe not everything, but something. And he'd chosen silence over truth. Comfort over honesty. He'd watched me be treated like an outsider for 32 years, and he'd never said a word. That wasn't neutrality. That was complicity. The guests would arrive soon. I could hear car doors closing in the driveway, voices calling holiday greetings. One more chance, I'd told myself. They were running out of chances. Aunt Margaret arrived at 2:15. I saw her through the living room window, my mother's younger sister, the one who sent me birthday cards with handwritten notes when everyone else forgot. She was 64, but moved like someone younger, silver hair cut short, kind eyes that always seemed to see more than she said. I opened the door before she could ring the bell. Regina. She pulled me into a hug, not the brief, performative kind my mother gave, a real one. How are you holding up? I'm fine. Sweetheart, I asked how you're holding up, not for the polite answer. Something in my chest cracked open. They didn't give me a seat at the table. Her jaw tightened. Of course they didn't. She looked past me into the house, toward where my mother was holding court in the living room. Diane hasn't changed. She never will. I lowered my voice. Aunt Margaret, before Grandma Ruth died, did she ever talk to you about me? About anything unusual? She went still, very still. Why do you ask? The lawyer gave me something, from Grandma. She said I deserved to know the truth. Aunt Margaret's eyes closed briefly. When she opened them, they were wet. She sent you the results, didn't she? My heart stopped. You know? I drove her to the lab. Her voice was barely a whisper now. 2 years before she died. She made me promise not to tell anyone until she was ready. Then she got sick so fast and… Aunt Margaret, who is my real father? I don't know. Only Diane knows that. She gripped my hands. But whatever you're planning to do, Regina, be careful. Your mother has spent 32 years burying this. She won't let it come up without a fight. I'm not looking for a fight. No. She studied my face. You're looking for the truth. That's more dangerous. Aunt Margaret pulled me onto the back porch, away from the arriving guests. The November air bit through my sweater, but I barely noticed. Tell me everything. She rubbed her arms against the cold. It started about 3 years ago, right around when you started visiting her every Sunday. She finally had time alone with you, really alone. And she noticed things, the way you flinched when talking about your mother, the way you never mentioned your father with any warmth. She started asking questions. I thought I was imagining it. You weren't. Aunt Margaret's voice was soft. Ruth confronted Diane once, years ago when you were a teenager. Diane denied everything, screamed at her own mother, said Ruth was trying to destroy her marriage. They didn't speak for 6 months. But Grandma didn't give up. No, she waited, she watched, and 2 years before she died, she decided she needed proof. Aunt Margaret looked at me. She asked me to help. I didn't want to. It felt like betrayal, going behind my own sister's back. But Ruth said something I couldn't argue with. What? That child has spent her whole life being punished for a sin she didn't commit. If I don't find out the truth, she never will. My throat tightened. Even after death, Grandma Ruth was still fighting for me. We got the samples about 18 months before she passed, Aunt Margaret continued. Hair from your brush when you visited, water glass Harold used at a family dinner. Ruth sent them to a private lab. When the results came back, she wanted to tell you immediately. But then she got her diagnosis, and she was afraid of leaving you alone with that knowledge while she was dying. So she set up the delay with the lawyer. 0%, she nodded. Ruth confronted Diane one last time. Diane fell apart, begged on her knees, said if Harold found out he'd leave her, said it would destroy Clarissa. She made Ruth promise to take the secret to her grave. But Grandma couldn't do it. She couldn't let you spend your whole life in the dark. Aunt Margaret squeezed my hand. She loved you so much, Regina, more than you know. By 3 o'clock, the house was full. 23 relatives packed into the living room and dining area, filling the space with chatter and laughter and the clink of pre-dinner drinks. Cousins I saw once a year. Aunts who air-kissed my cheek without making eye contact. Uncles who called me Rachel or Rebecca before being corrected. I stood by the kitchen doorway, watching my family celebrate without me. My father tapped his wineglass with a fork. The room fell silent. Before we sit down, he said, I want to say how grateful I am for this family. For my beautiful wife Diane, who made this meal possible. For our daughter Clarissa, who makes us proud every day. He raised his glass toward my sister. And for my soon-to-be grandchild, who we already love more than words can say. No mention of me, not even a glance in my direction. Clarissa stood up, radiant in a cream-colored dress that showed off her baby bump. Her husband Marcus put his arm around her. Thank you all for being here, she said. We have an announcement, though I'm sure most of you already saw on Instagram. Light laughter. We're expecting, due any day now, and we've decided to name the baby Ruth after our grandmother. The room erupted in applause. My mother's smile flickered, just for a second, before she wiped what looked like happy tears. Everyone hugged Clarissa. I stood frozen. They were naming the baby after Grandma Ruth. I watched my mother's face carefully. She hadn't known about this. Clarissa had probably announced it to surprise her, thinking it would be sweet. The irony was so thick I could choke on it. My mother was trapped. She couldn't object without explaining why, and she couldn't explain why without revealing everything. For once, Clarissa's thoughtlessness had backed our mother into a corner. Aunt Margaret caught my eye across the room. Her expression said, "Not yet, be patient." But patience was getting harder by the minute. "Regina," my mother's voice cut through the noise. "Guests are seated. Go to the kitchen and make sure the serving dishes are ready. Let the adults enjoy the meal." Let the adults enjoy the meal. I was 32 years old. I need to pause here for a moment, because I know some of you understand exactly what I'm feeling right now. Have you ever stood at the edge of a family gathering, watching everyone else belong, wondering why you never could? If you have, comment "I understand" below. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time, because what happens next changes everything. Let me tell you about the toast. The toast started innocently enough. Clarissa stood at the head of the table, sparkling cider in hand, no alcohol this close to her due date. Pregnancy glow in full effect. 23 faces looked up at her adoringly. I stood in the kitchen doorway, dish towel over my shoulder like a uniform. I want to thank everyone for being here, she began. Especially Mom and Dad, who sacrificed so much to give me every opportunity. The piano lessons, the private school, the medical degree. She laughed. I know I wasn't cheap. Polite chuckles around the table. And I want to acknowledge someone else. She turned toward me. My heart lifted for one stupid, hopeful second. My sister Regina, who stayed home when Mom was sick so I could pursue my dreams. The room made sympathetic noises. I waited for the rest, the gratitude, the recognition, something. Every successful family needs someone who stays behind, Clarissa continued. Someone to hold down the fort while the rest of us reach for the stars. Regina is that person. She's our foundation. Foundation. The thing people stand on, walk over, never see. So thank you, Regina, for being, she paused, searching for words. Reliable, steady, you know, the dependable one. More murmurs of agreement. An aunt nodded sagely. Every family needs a Regina. Clarissa raised her glass. To family! To family, everyone echoed. I didn't raise anything. My hands were full of serving dishes I'd been carrying when she started her little speech. Dependable, reliable, steady, not smart, not accomplished, not loved, just useful. My mother caught my eye and smiled, the kind of smile that said, see how generous we are, acknowledging you at all. The envelope in my pocket felt like it was burning through my coat. Not yet, I told myself, but soon. I retreated to the kitchen to reload serving dishes. Through the crack in the door, I could hear the conversation at the table. Such a shame about Regina. That was Aunt Barbara, my mother's cousin from Philadelphia. Diane told me she just couldn't finish school, some kind of anxiety issue. I heard it was motivation, another voice added. Uncle Thomas. Some people just aren't cut out for academics. She's still single, isn't she? A cousin's wife I barely knew. 32 and never married. Diane said she's too difficult, scares men away. My mother's voice floated above the others, sweet as poisoned honey. I've tried to help her. God knows I've tried, but Regina has always been different. Even as a child, there was something not quite right. I used to pray she'd grow out of it. You're a saint, Diane, dealing with that for so many years. We do what we do for our children, all of them. I pressed my back against the kitchen wall, hands shaking. She'd built this narrative for decades, the disappointing daughter, the difficult one, the one who couldn't quite measure up. It wasn't random cruelty, it was strategy. If anyone ever questioned why she treated me differently, the answer was already in place. Poor Diane, stuck with such a troublesome child. Poor Diane, who tried so hard but Regina just wouldn't cooperate. The truth never had a chance against a story that comfortable, that convenient. I thought about all the family gatherings where I'd felt judgmental eyes on me, all the whispered conversations that stopped when I entered a room, all the pitying looks from relatives who thought they knew who I was. They didn't know me. They knew my mother's version of me. And tonight, that version was going to die. After the main course, I carried out Grandma Ruth's pecan pie. I'd spent hours on it, her exact recipe, handwritten on a card stained with decades of kitchen love. The lattice crust was golden brown. The filling smelled like cinnamon and memory, and the only person in this family who'd ever loved me without conditions. I set it on the table. The conversation paused. What is that? My mother's voice was sharp. Grandma Ruth's pecan pie, her recipe. I didn't put that on the menu. I thought for the baby. Clarissa said they're naming her Ruth. It seemed fitting. The silence stretched like a held breath. Clarissa exchanged a look with my mother. That's sweet, Clarissa said carefully. But we actually have a dessert catered from Henri's Bakery. 3-tier pumpkin cheesecake. There's room for both, I said. My mother stood up. Regina, take that to the kitchen. We don't need it. It's Grandma's recipe. She taught me herself. I said we don't need it. Her voice rose, heads turned. You don't have a seat at this table. What makes you think your pie belongs here? The words landed like a physical blow. 23 faces stared at me. Some looked uncomfortable. Some looked curious. Some, the ones who'd heard my mother's stories, looked like they'd expected this. Why don't I have a seat? My voice was calm, calmer than I felt. I'm your daughter. My mother's mask slipped. Just for a second, I saw the real her underneath, not cold, but terrified. Then it snapped back into place. You are a disappointment, she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. You've always been a disappointment, and there is no room at this table for disappointments. The room went silent. Nobody defended me. Nobody said a word. I stood there for a long moment. The pie in my hands. 23 pairs of eyes on my face. Something inside me, the thing that had kept me quiet for 32 years, that had made me believe if I just tried harder, loved more, gave more, they would finally accept me. That thing cracked open and fell away. I set the pie down gently on the table. 32 years, I said. My voice didn't shake. I have spent 32 years trying to understand why you hate me. Why I could never be good enough. Why Dad looked at me like a stranger. Why you gave Clarissa everything and gave me scraps. Regina! My father's voice, warning. I dropped out of school because you asked me to. I took care of you through cancer because you needed me. I showed up to every holiday, every dinner, every event where you treated me like the help. And I never once asked why. I reached into my coat pocket. Grandma Ruth asked. She wanted to know why her granddaughter was being punished for something she didn't do. My mother's face went white. She found out. I pulled out the envelope. And she made sure I would too. What is that? Clarissa's voice was high, nervous. I walked to my father's place at the head of the table. He looked up at me, that same empty expression I'd seen my whole life, but now with something new underneath. Fear. I placed the envelope on his plate. Happy Thanksgiving, Dad. I kept my voice steady. I finally understand why you hate me, because I'm not your daughter. The room erupted, but I wasn't done. The DNA results are inside, 0% match, and the real question isn't who my father is. I looked at my mother. It's why you punished me for your mistake. My father's hands trembled as he opened the envelope. The room had frozen, forks suspended, wine glasses forgotten, 23 people holding their breath. Somewhere, a clock ticked. The turkey grew cold. Dad pulled out the papers. His eyes moved across the page. I watched the color drain from his face, starting at his forehead and moving down like a tide going out. What is it? Clarissa stood up. Dad, what does it say? He didn't answer. He just stared at the paper, at the numbers, at the laboratory seal that made it official. Harold? My mother's voice cracked. Harold, listen to me. 0%. His voice was barely a whisper. Probability of paternity, 0%. Gasps around the table. Someone dropped a fork. Aunt Barbara's hand flew to her mouth. That's impossible, Clarissa said. That's a fake. Regina made it up to get attention. Your grandmother sent it through her lawyer, I said. The laboratory records are authentic. Aunt Margaret was there when she collected the samples. Every head turned to Aunt Margaret. She sat very still, then slowly nodded. Ruth made me promise not to say anything while she was alive. But Regina deserves the truth. This is ridiculous. My mother slammed her palm on the table. I am not going to sit here and listen to lies from my own daughter. They're not lies, Diane. My father's voice was hollow. I've known, not everything, but I suspected, for years. The room went completely silent. My mother's face contorted. First shock, then fear, then something darker. The mask she'd worn for 3 decades was crumbling in real time. I wasn't sure, Dad continued. But I knew something was wrong. He looked at me for the first time, really looked at me. I didn't want to know. So you chose to hate me instead, I said. He had no answer. My mother started crying, not quiet tears, loud theatrical sobs, the kind designed to attract attention and sympathy. She'd perfected this technique over decades. I'd seen it deployed against doctors, teachers, customer service representatives, anyone who dared to challenge her. You don't understand, she clutched at the tablecloth. None of you understand what I went through. I was young. I made a mistake. One mistake. A mistake you made me pay for, I said, every day of my life. I tried to love you. God knows I tried. She looked around the table, seeking allies. But every time I looked at you, I saw what I'd done. It was too hard. Don't you see? I'm the victim here. Aunt Margaret stood up. Her voice was steady and cold. Diane, you had an affair. You got pregnant. You lied to your husband and let him raise another man's child. And when that child became a daily reminder of your guilt, instead of dealing with it, you abused her. I never abused anyone. You denied her love. You denied her a place at your table. You told everyone who would listen that she was broken, difficult, a disappointment, so that no one would ever believe her over you. Murmurs around the table. People shifting in their seats. The cousins and aunts and uncles who'd spent years accepting my mother's version of events were seeing it differently now. That's not abuse, Clarissa protested, but her voice was uncertain. That's just family dynamics. Family dynamics? I almost laughed. She stole my childhood, my education, my self-worth. She turned me into a ghost in my own home, and she did it on purpose. My mother's sobs intensified, but I noticed something. Nobody was comforting her. For the first time in 32 years, nobody was on her side. My father sat motionless, the DNA report still in his hands. Dad? Clarissa's voice shook. Dad, say something. This doesn't change anything. You're still my father. Regina is still... When did you know? I cut her off, staring at him. When did you first suspect? He was quiet for a long time. The whole room waited. You were 5 years old, he finally said. You fell off your bike, needed stitches. The doctor mentioned your blood type, O negative. Diane and I are both A positive. He set down the papers. I looked it up. That shouldn't be possible. You knew since I was 5? I didn't know, I suspected. I convinced myself there must be an explanation. He couldn't meet my eyes. It was easier to doubt than to know for certain. Easier for who? My voice cracked. For you? It wasn't easier for me. I know. You watched her treat me like nothing for 27 years. You never said a word. You never protected me. I know. You let me think something was wrong with me, that I wasn't good enough, that I didn't deserve to be loved. I know. His voice broke. I'm sorry. Is that why you chose me? The question came out before I could stop it. When Mom got sick, you picked me to drop out, not Clarissa, because I wasn't really yours. He couldn't meet my eyes. That was answer enough. I told myself it was practical, he said quietly. Clarissa's career was more important. But deep down, yes. I protected her because she was mine. I sacrificed you because you weren't. The honesty was brutal, but at least it was honest. 2 words earlier, and now this confession. 27 years since he first suspected, 32 years of my life, and only now was he being real. Sorry doesn't give me back my childhood. Sorry doesn't erase the nights I cried myself to sleep wondering what I did wrong. Sorry doesn't fix anything. He looked at me, finally, fully, and I saw tears in his eyes. Harold Seaton, who never showed emotion, who raised me with cold indifference, was crying. I don't expect forgiveness, he said. I just wanted you to know. It was never about you. It was about my own cowardice. You deserved better. I nodded slowly. Yes, I did. I turned to my mother. The crying had stopped. She sat rigid in her chair, mascara streaking her cheeks, looking suddenly older than her 58 years. Who is my father? Don't, she whispered. Regina, please. You owe me this. After everything, tell me who he is. I can't. Can't or won't. Her jaw tightened. That flash of steel I knew so well, the Diane Seaton who always got her way, who controlled every narrative, who never lost a battle in her life. I will take that secret to my grave. Why? I stepped closer. Is he someone I know? Someone in this room? Murmurs rippled through the guests. People looked at each other nervously. Don't be ridiculous. But her voice wavered. Is he alive? Does he know I exist? Enough! She slammed her hands on the table. I made a mistake 33 years ago. I have paid for it every single day since. I will not drag another person into this disaster. Another person? I caught the word. You mean him. You're protecting him. I'm protecting everyone. You're protecting yourself. You always have. Aunt Margaret spoke up. Diane, The girl deserves to know who her father is. Stay out of this, Margaret. You've done enough damage. I studied my mother's face, the fear, the defiance, the desperation. She wasn't just hiding a name, she was hiding something bigger, something that would make this worse. Fine, I said. Keep your secret. I'll find him myself. Her eyes widened. You can't. I can. DNA databases, genealogy websites, private investigators. One way or another, I'll know. I picked up Grandma Ruth's pie from the table. Enjoy your Thanksgiving. I turned toward the door. Behind me, I heard my mother's voice, barely a whisper. If you find out, you'll wish you hadn't. I didn't stop walking. Before I tell you what happened next, I want to know what you think. Who do you believe my real father is? Someone my mother worked with? Someone from the family? Comment your theory below. I read every single one. If you're new here and this story has you hooked, hit subscribe and the notification bell. Because the aftermath of that Thanksgiving, it changed everything. Let me tell you about the fallout. I walked to the front door, Grandma Ruth's pie in my hands, 23 pairs of eyes on my back. Clarissa caught up with me in the hallway. Regina, wait. She grabbed my arm. Her face was blotchy, mascara running. You can't just leave. You've destroyed everything. Did you hear what I said in there about the DNA? I heard. Her voice cracked. But that doesn't... you're still my sister, right? We grew up together. Mom is still your mom. For a moment, I saw something real in her eyes. Fear. The same fear I'd lived with my whole life, the terror of not belonging. Then it hardened into something else. This was supposed to be my day. My special day. And just like that, the moment was gone. I stopped, turned. My sister's perfect face was flushed, panicked, mascara threatening to run. What exactly did I destroy, Clarissa? Thanksgiving, Mom and Dad's marriage, my pregnancy announcement. Her voice rose. This was supposed to be my day, my special day, and you made it about you. I looked at her, really looked, for the first time in years. The golden child, the perfect daughter, the one who got everything I was denied. You've had 32 years of special days, I said quietly. Every birthday party that was bigger than mine. Every achievement that was celebrated while mine was ignored. Every time Mom looked at you with love and looked at me with nothing. That's not my fault. No, it's not. I pulled my arm free. But you enjoyed it. You never once questioned why I was treated differently. You never stood up for me. You just accepted that you deserved more. Her mouth opened, closed. No words came out. I'm not angry at you, Clarissa. I'm just done pretending we're sisters in any way that matters. We share a mother. We share a woman who loved you and resented me. That's not the same thing. I opened the front door. Cold November air rushed in. Regina. Clarissa's voice was small now. Will I ever see you again? I considered the question. 32 years of being her shadow, her backdrop, her foil. Maybe. When you're ready to see me as a person instead of a prop. I stepped out into the cold. The door closed behind me. I didn't look back. I was halfway to my car when I heard footsteps behind me. Aunt Margaret caught up, slightly out of breath, her coat unbuttoned. Regina, wait, please. I stopped, but didn't turn around. My hands were shaking, from cold or adrenaline, I couldn't tell. You don't have to go through this alone. She came around to face me, her kind eyes wet with tears. Ruth would be so proud of you, standing up like that, telling the truth. I'm not sure proud is the right word. My voice wavered. I just blew up my entire family. No, sweetheart. Your mother blew it up 32 years ago. You just showed everyone the wreckage she'd been hiding. She pulled me into a hug and something broke inside me. I cried, really cried, for the first time that night. For the grandmother who loved me. For the childhood I never had. For the truth that hurt as much as it healed. What do I do now? I whispered. Aunt Margaret pulled back and reached into her coat pocket. She handed me a folded piece of paper. Ruth wanted you to have this. She was going to give it to you herself, but she ran out of time. I unfolded it. A name, an address, a phone number. What is this? A private investigator specializes in genealogical searches. Ruth had already started the process of finding your biological father. She paused. She narrowed it down to 3 possibilities before she got too sick to continue. 3? One died in 2015. One lives in Europe. She pointed to the address. One lives 20 minutes from here. My heart stopped. 20 minutes. He doesn't know about you, Aunt Margaret said softly. But if you want to find out who he is, this woman can help. I clutched the paper like a lifeline. I drove for an hour before I realized I wasn't going home. The highway stretched out dark and empty. Other families were inside, warm, eating leftover pie, watching football. Normal Thanksgiving things. I was driving through the night with a piece of paper burning a hole in my pocket and Grandma Ruth's pie slowly cooling on my passenger seat. I pulled over at a rest stop near the state line. The parking lot was empty, except for a few long-haul trucks. I turned off the engine and sat in the silence. My whole life, I'd been waiting for my parents to explain why they didn't love me. I'd tried everything, being perfect, being invisible, being useful. Nothing worked. Now I knew it never could have worked. I wasn't their failure, I was their secret, their shame. Every time they looked at me, they saw the lie at the center of their marriage. I pulled out my phone and looked at the number on the paper. The investigator. The trail to my biological father. Part of me wanted to call right now, drive to his house, knock on his door. Another part was terrified. What if he was worse than Harold? What if he knew about me and didn't care? What if finding him just gave me another father who didn't want me? I looked up at the sky through my windshield. The stars were bright out here, away from the city lights. Grandma, I whispered, what do I do? The wind picked up, rocking my car gently. I thought about what she'd written in her letter. You deserve to know who you are. Maybe that was the answer. Not what I would find, but who I would become in the searching. I turned the car back on. I still didn't know where I was going, but for the first time, I was the one driving. 1 week after Thanksgiving, my phone buzzed with a text from Aunt Margaret. Your father filed for divorce this morning. Thought you should know. I stared at the message for a long time. 35 years of marriage, ended with a courthouse filing. Over the next few days, the updates trickled in. Harold had moved into a hotel downtown. He'd hired a lawyer, a good one, apparently. Diane was claiming the DNA test was inadmissible, that I'd fabricated it for attention, that she was the victim of a coordinated attack. Nobody was buying it. The family is splitting, Aunt Margaret told me over coffee that Saturday. Barbara called to apologize for all the things she said about you over the years. Said she feels sick about it. Thomas wants to have lunch with you, says he judged you unfairly. Now they believe me. Now they can't pretend they don't. She stirred her coffee. Your mother called me 17 times yesterday. She's losing the narrative, and she doesn't know how to function without it. My phone buzzed again. Clarissa, the 7th call this week. I let it go to voicemail, then read the transcript. Regina, please call me back. I'm 8 weeks pregnant and my parents are getting divorced and you won't talk to me. This stress isn't good for the baby. Whatever I did, I'm sorry, okay? Just, please. I deleted it. That's cold, Aunt Margaret observed. She's not sorry for what she did. She's sorry she's uncomfortable. I put my phone away. There's a difference. There is. Aunt Margaret nodded slowly. What about Harold? He called the bookshop looking for you. I know. Are you going to talk to him? I thought about it. The man who knew or suspected and chose silence. The man who let me suffer to protect his own comfort. Eventually, when I'm ready. If I was ever ready. 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, Harold found me. I was shelving books in the biography section when I heard the bell above the door. Something made me look up. He stood in the entrance, smaller than I remembered. Older. His coat hung loose on his shoulders like he'd lost weight. Regina. His voice was hoarse. Can we talk? I led him to the coffee corner at the back of the shop. We sat across from each other at a small table, 2 people who'd lived in the same house for 18 years and never really known each other. I'm not going to make excuses, he started. What I did, what I didn't do, was wrong. When you suspected, I said, when you first doubted I was yours, what stopped you from finding out for sure? He stared at his hands. Fear. If I knew for certain, I'd have to do something about it. Leave Diane, tear the family apart, face what it meant about my marriage. So you punished me instead. I told myself I wasn't. I told myself I was just keeping my distance, being fair. He laughed bitterly. Fair. I convinced myself that treating you like a stranger was fair. It wasn't. I know. He looked up at me, eyes red-rimmed. You were a child, Regina. You didn't ask to be born into this mess, and I made you carry the weight of my own cowardice. I felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness, not yet, maybe not ever, but something like acknowledgement. There's something you should know, he said, reaching into his jacket. After Thanksgiving, I couldn't sleep. I went through old boxes in the garage, things from when Diane and I first got married. I found her work albums from the accounting firm. He slid a photograph across the table. A company picnic, summer 1992. My mother in a sundress, laughing at something off camera, and next to her, his hand almost touching her shoulder, a young man with dark hair and kind eyes. James Martin, Harold said. He was an accountant there. I remember being jealous of how often she mentioned him. Then she got pregnant with you, and he transferred away, and I told myself I was being paranoid. I picked up the photo, and the world tilted sideways. The photograph showed a young man in a business suit, dark hair, kind eyes, a smile that looked vaguely familiar. James Martin, Harold said. He was an accountant at the firm where your mother worked as a secretary. They were close, for about a year before she got pregnant with you. I couldn't stop staring at the photo. Something about the eyes, the set of the jaw. Does he know about me? I don't think so. He transferred to another company before Diane started showing. According to what I found, they never spoke again. I turned the photo over. Nothing on the back. Why are you giving me this? Harold was quiet for a long moment. Because Ruth was right. You deserve to know who you are. And because... He took a breath. Because it's the only thing I can give you that might matter. I thought about the investigator's information in my apartment. The 3 possibilities. 1 dead, 1 in Europe, 1 20 minutes away. Where does he live? Maple Street. About 15 minutes from here. Harold's voice was steady. He's 62, retired last year. Never married, no other children. He paused. I don't know what that means, or if it means anything. I tucked the photo into my bag. Thank you, I said, for this. I know it doesn't make up for anything. No, it doesn't. I stood up. But it's a start. He nodded, accepting that. I walked him to the door. Before he left, he turned back. Regina, whatever you find out, whoever he is, I hope he's better than me. That's a low bar. I know. He almost smiled. Happy hunting. I watched him walk away into the winter afternoon, smaller than I'd ever seen him. Then I pulled out the photo and looked at it again. James Martin. Was he my father? There was only one way to find out. 1 month after Thanksgiving. My 33rd birthday came and went last week. Aunt Margaret baked a cake shaped like a stack of books, and for the first time in memory, I actually celebrated. I'm sitting in my new apartment, a studio above a bakery on Oak Street, 3 blocks from Aunt Margaret's house. The walls are bare except for one photograph, me and Grandma Ruth at my 8th birthday party. The only picture from my childhood where I'm genuinely smiling. Things are different now. I enrolled in community college, evening classes, twice a week. Business administration. The degree I never got to finish. My professor is younger than me. I don't care. The bookshop gave me more hours. The owner, Mrs. Patterson, told me she'd always wanted to make me assistant manager, but thought I wasn't interested. You seemed so beaten down, she said. Like you didn't believe you deserved more. She was right. I didn't. I'm learning to. Clarissa had her baby last week. A girl. They named her Ruth, like they said they would. My mother called to tell me, first time we'd spoken since Thanksgiving. Your niece was born, she said, voice carefully neutral. I thought you'd want to know. Congratulations, I said. I hope she's healthy. She is, 7 pounds 4 ounces. Clarissa wants you to come visit. I'll think about it. Regina. I'll think about it, Mom. I hung up. I didn't feel guilty. That's new for me. The investigator's number is saved in my phone. I've called 3 times now. She confirmed what Harold told me. James Martin, 62, lives on Maple Street. Retired architect. No family of his own. I haven't gone to see him yet. Some days I think I'm ready. Other days the fear wins. But I'm not giving up. I'm just taking my time. For the first time in my life, I have all the time I need. Nobody's making me rush anymore. Last night, I read Grandma Ruth's letter again. I've read it so many times the paper is soft at the creases, the ink starting to fade where my fingers have touched it most. But there's one part I keep coming back to. A postscript I almost missed the first time, written in smaller letters at the bottom of the last page. P.S. Regina, I want you to remember something. You were not a mistake. You were not a punishment. You were not something to be ashamed of. You were a miracle I got to love for 30 years. The bravest, kindest, most resilient person I've ever known. Not in spite of what you went through, but because of how you survived it. Your mother's choices are not your story. Her shame is not your burden to carry. You are allowed to be happy. You are allowed to be loved. You are allowed to take up space in a room without apologizing for existing. Whoever your father is, wherever he is, he doesn't define you either. You are already whole. You always have been. I'm sorry I couldn't be there to see you rise. But I know you will. You were born to. Find your truth, but don't let it consume you. Live, sweetheart. That's the only revenge that matters. All my love, forever, Grandma Ruth. I held the letter to my chest and cried. Not the broken, hopeless tears I'd cried so many times before. These were different. Cleansing, like rain after a drought. She believed in me when no one else did. She saw me when everyone else looked away. And even though she's gone, I feel her with me, in this apartment, in my choices, in the life I'm finally building for myself. I'm trying, Grandma, I whispered. I'm really trying. Somewhere, I know she heard me. Today. I'm sitting at my kitchen table, with 4 chairs, in my apartment, looking at my phone. There's a text message I haven't opened yet. It arrived this morning from a number I don't recognize. I already know what it says. The investigator told me it was coming. James Martin found out about me. Someone, Harold probably, told him. He reached out through the investigator, asking if I wanted to meet. I've read the preview 50 times. Hello, Regina. I don't know if this is welcome, but I recently learned that I might be... The rest is hidden behind the notification. I haven't swiped to open it yet. Aunt Margaret is coming for dinner tonight. I made Grandma Ruth's pot roast, another recipe from the handwritten book. The apartment smells like rosemary and home. There's a photo on my fridge now. Me and Aunt Margaret at the bookshop, the day I got promoted to assistant manager. Both of us grinning like idiots. I'm 33 now, a college student again. I have a job I actually care about, an aunt who loves me, and a grandmother who believed in me when no one else did. I have questions that might never get answered, a mother I may never forgive, a sister I'm not sure I want to know, and a message on my phone from a man who might be my father. I'll open it, eventually, when I'm ready. But not right now. Right now, I have a pot roast to finish, an aunt to hug, a life to live. For the first time in 33 years, I get to choose what happens next. Not my mother, not Harold, not a secret that's older than I am. Just me, Regina Seaton, whoever that turns out to be. I'm finally holding the pen, and that's everything. If there's anything you take from my story, I hope it's this. You don't owe your silence to people who hurt you. Setting boundaries isn't abandoning your family, it's protecting yourself. And sometimes the truth hurts, but living a lie hurts more. Thank you for staying with me until the end. If this story resonated with you, or if you know someone who needs to hear it, please share it. Hit that like button if you felt something. Subscribe if you want more stories like this one. And tell me in the comments, do you think I should message James Martin? Should I meet my biological father? I really want to know what you would do. Check the description for more stories. And wherever you are, whatever you're going through, I hope you find your truth too. See you in the next one.